Hello, welcome back to math. Today we're going to be doing lesson 128 from the Algebra 1 textbook. We're going to be covering the first part of example 11.4 in your textbook, graphing solutions of linear equations. So this draws on the previous lesson where we had to figure out what y equaled with a certain percentage or certain number for x. So we're going to look at our first problem, and if we needed to solve this graphically, y equals 2 plus x and y equals 6 minus x, we'd want to construct the graph of each equation. So for that, we're wanting to take it and go, okay, y equals 2 plus x. Well, if x equals something, what does y equal? So the first one that they give us here is if x equals -1, the value of y is represented by AB. So we can already see that if x equals -1, y is going to also equal -1. Because -1 plus 2 is going to get you -1. We're going to do the same thing for our other one, y equals 6 minus x. So if x equals -1, then y is going to equal -7. Okay? So this means they're not satisfied by the same one. -1 does not work to fulfill this equation. However, it does give us a chance to put plots on our graph and start forming the graph. Now, we need to put more plots on here in order to be able to figure out what the answer is. So we're going to keep going with our graph and try to find out any other equations or any other numbers that could help us get closer to our answer. So what if x equals 0? Well, 2 plus 0 is going to get us 2. And 6 minus 0 is just going to stay at 6. So that again helps us put plots on here. Because then if we go across, well, x, 0, or this one is 6, so there's a plot point, and then x, 0, y, 2 is up there. Oh, sorry, x, 0. So for this one, if x is 0, then y is 2. And for this one, if x is 0, then y is 6. So that again gives us 2 plot points, but still we're not closer to getting them to intersect, because we have to get them to intersect. So we should probably throw in something that we know is going to get us a point that's way over here in our graph. So we should go with a bigger number. So why don't we try, if x is, why don't we just keep going up our number scale? We can go x is 1. Well, 2 plus 1 is 3. 6 minus 1 is 5. So now if we go 1, 3, we get a point. If we do 1, 5, we're going to get a point. It's getting us closer, but it's not quite over there. But it looks like if we were to do a 2 or a 3, we could probably get it. So why don't we try 3? Well, 2 plus 3 is going to get us 5. And 6 minus 3 is just 3. Well, that definitely gets us over there, because now we have 3 and 3, and 3 and 5, and that gets us to intersect. And so then we can look at where they intersect and look at what the value of P is, which is 2 and 4. So we know that if x equals 2, then y equals 4, and that will satisfy both equations. Now we want to test that out and make sure that we're right. So we're going to do y equals 2 plus x. Remember to rewrite your equation so that you can remember that you got your signs correct and so that you know that you're doing the right equation. So now if we do y equals 2 plus 2, then that does equal 4. And if we were to y equals 6 minus x and say, okay, is it going to equal 4? Yes, they do. So we know that 2 and 4, or the combination 2, 4, does satisfy our equation and thus solve the problem for us. So that's what you're basically doing for your first 2 problems today. So let's do number 1 together, and then you should be able to do number 11 on your own. Number 11 is a bit more complicated, but I think you can manage it. Remember to get rid of your fractions first. But let's do number 1 because it's nice, it's simple, and I think you should be able to work it on your own, but we're going to do it together, alright? So we have x minus y equals 1, and x plus y equals 9. So the first thing we're going to do is create our charts. And then we want to start with a low number to get us over here on the graph, and then do a higher number in order to push us over here on the graph in order to try to get them to intersect somewhere. So let's start off really low ball. Let's say x is 1. Well, for this one, for x minus y equals 1, 1 minus 0 would get us 1. And over here, x plus y equals 9, so 1 plus 8 is going to equal 9. Alright, now we're going to plug that into our graph and see if that works out. So, our first one is 1, 0, so we're going to go 1, 0. And then our next one is 1, 8. Alright, so now we have 2 points on the graph. So now we can see we're definitely working in this upper quadrant here. So now I can actually zoom in a little bit so we can... Alright, so now we need a number that's going to start showing us which way the line's going to go. Are they going to go upwards, or are they going to go back down and maybe go into one of the other quadrants? So let's jump to a little bit of a higher number. What if we did 3 and 2? What if we did 3 on both? Well, 3 minus 2. And 3 plus 6. Alright, so now let's plug those in and see whether if they can help us a little bit. So now we have 3 and 2. And 3 and 2. And we have 3 and 6. So it's pushing us a little bit closer, but I'm still not seeing very much overlap in them. So let's see if we can jump a little bit higher and see if that works any. Well, we can see over here that we have 6 as a big number over here. And we already know it. So why don't we just plug 6 into both of them? Oops. And then 6 minus 5 is 1, and 6 plus 3 is 9. So now we can go back to our graph and go 6, 5, and 6, 3. And we can see that our lines have finally started to overlap a little bit. So we know that we're getting basically where we need to be. So now we can go to our graph and we can connect our lines and see whether we have any overlap between the dots. That's a really bad line. Oops. Okay, now we can see that they do overlap, and here's our overlap point. So now if we figure out what our point is, we can see that 5, 4 seems to be what would satisfy both equations. But again, we want to test this. So we're going to come over here and go, does 5 minus 4 equal 1? Yes. Does 5 plus 4 equal 9? Yes. So we know 5 and 4 will satisfy the equation. Don't forget to label your lines. When you finish, that way you can tell what they are when you come back to them again, and so that your teacher knows that you were able to do the problem correctly. So that's basically what you're going to do for today's classwork and the homework. So you have for classwork, like we said, 1 and 11, and we just did 1 together. Like I said, for 11, get rid of your fractions. Okay? Once you get rid of your fractions, then the rest of it's pretty easy to solve, and you're going to do exactly what we've done here. So just use what you know and get rid of the fractions. And then for homework, you have questions 2, 4, and 6. And they should be fairly simple and straightforward for you to do. Use your building blocks and what you know and build upon them. And that's it.